not everybody has the same raw materials, but I think it's a responsibility to try to use whatever raw materials you've been given as well as possible, as effective or generously as possible. But it's like, okay, game on. What are my raw materials and what can I do with it?
Be a good steward where you are. No matter where you are in life, give it your all, give 100%, be an encourager, cheer everyone else on, like, do those things with excellence. And so
I love thinking about the analogies of marriage and how that informs my perspective of God, and parenting and how that informs my perspective. There's so many analogies and things that I've learned. God has these hard boundaries set where he's like, stay away from this, stay away from that. But like, there's a lot of fun, exciting things I've placed you here. Do you believe in the one? I mean,
do I believe in soulmates? I think I do. Hey everybody, Dr. Josh Axe here. Welcome to the Growth Lab podcast, where each and every week we talk about how to grow yourself, your health, your wealth, and take your career and relationships to the next level. Today we've got a super close friend of mine, one of my best friends, Andrew East. Andrew is a former NFL athlete. He is the co-founder with his wife, Sean, of Family Made. It's this incredible media company that actually has family values, which most media companies don't have that anymore. And also he is just generally a really wise guy. We're going to talk today about, we kind of said everything. We might talk about politics. We may talk about how to grow personally, leadership, psychology, and a whole lot more. But Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so honored to be here. Thanks for having me, Josh.
So one, obviously you spent some time in the NFL, and that's one of the things I think it's you and Sean obviously had so much success in your careers, and now you're seeing so much success in your business. What are some of the things that you learned in being the NFL and the training, all the things you did, that you've been able to really take some of those lessons or principles and apply those to all of your business success?
Yeah. One thing that I struggled with and then ultimately learned was, I think there's probably like two groups of, you could probably divide people into two groups. One of people that don't apply themselves enough, and like you really need to actively engage them. But then another group, which I fell into, is like, I was a try hard in the NFL, and I like maybe belonged athletically, maybe didn't, but I was like really trying. I was like tight gripped and trying to just force my way into the NFL, which got me maybe in the door. But ultimately, when I got there, I fell apart. Like I was saying with the insecurities, like I was thinking too much, and I would get out on the field when it was time to practice, and I would just fall apart because I was breaking down every small little thing. And I think there's a lot of people that are like that. And at some point, like trusting yourself goes a long way, and just having confidence in your practice. And ultimately, when I started, it took 3 years to get to this point, but when I started performing well in the NFL, it was like every time I step on the field, my mind turns off, and I had to actively distract myself when it was time to like perform, so that I wouldn't overanalyze and like paralyze myself in a lot of different ways. So that was one thing, just like trusting in your preparation. I also think, for me, it took 5 years to play in my first NFL game. We were together when I got the call.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy.
ABC Coachina in New York City. And that was a good weekend. But I think if you keep answering the door when someone's knocking, something good's going to happen, whether it's a life lesson that you learn or like the opportunity finally comes along. But I think there's a lot of truth that luck is preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yep.
And defining it like that. I think I've been lucky a lot in my life, but I've kept applying myself, which has, led to me being prepared when the opportunity does present itself. And yeah, I think also get in where you fit in, kind of too. So like at Vandy, when I was playing football there, my freshman year, I wanted to transfer out so bad because I came in and I was like this questionable recruit. Like nobody knew who I was. I was the last guy to get the offer, and people had already known each other. My whole class was buddy. I showed up and I was like a long snapper. I tore my hamstring the second week of practice. I was like, this is brutal. I don't feel like I belong. But then we had a coach come on, and it was like this really wonderful meritocracy, I think, in a lot of ways, where we had competitions that you could kind of prove yourself in the weight room, in the meeting room, on the field, like all these different arenas. And I found that my niche, like where I kind of settled in, was in the weight room. I could be the guy. I was not the guy in the field. Like I was not that talented in the meeting room. I was whatever, like not that I'm not super great on X's and O's and strategy, but like in the weight room, I could bring the energy. And so ultimately I ended up getting voted captain 2 years in a row just because, of like my contribution in the weight room. And so to me, you know, I guess it kind of goes back to insecurity, but I always had this like thing where, gosh, I get 8 plays a game as a long snapper. What am I'm not actually contributing here, but gosh, look at our schedule. We get 12 games a year. We're in the weight room every day. Let me stand out here. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an opportunity that you can, you know, arbitrage, to use a fancy word, but shoot, let me be the guy in there. And that's what happened.
And this is such a good life principle, because it's like, be a good steward where you are. No matter where you are in life, give it your all, give 100%, be an encourager, cheer everyone else on, like, you know, do those things with excellence. And so, and then that opens up other doors later on. Right. And I think your presence and how you've done that in your career and also your relationships. I mean, Sean and I, again, we were talking about how you've built a lot of these great friendships because you see the best in people, you invest in people. You have that very same demeanor, the very same thing that made you the best teammate makes you a best friend. And so I think that's powerful. I'd love for you to share the story, because I remember one of the first conversations we had, we were driving around and I asked you why you chose Vanderbilt University to play football at. And you told this really amazing story about how you were given that opportunity.
Yeah. So I went to high school in Indianapolis, shout out North Central Panthers. And again, I was good at football. I wasn't insane. So my whole junior year, I spent trying to get recruited. And my head coach at the time, like we just didn't have a lot of players playing college ball out of our high school. So I was doing it all myself. I got every single email of D1 special teams coaches, and I sent them an email with my tape, with a letter, just like, here's the thing, dude. There's however many high schools with however many long snappers or linebackers. What are you going to do to stand out? It's like, I'm not saying act like a doofus, but like there's a lot of ways that when I ultimately meet the special teams coach from Vandy, he's going to remember that I sent him, oh yeah, you're Andrew East. I remember getting that random email. How'd you get my email address? And it's like, that's a card you could play. So anyway, I sent an email to every D1 special teams coach. And then that summer, you know, we had like a 8-week summer. I think I went to 12 summer camps for D1 programs, just trying to like get in front of people. I wanted to play D1 college ball more than anything in the world. That was my goal. I was going to go to Princeton. I was going to Alabama, and wherever would have me, I would play. Fast forward to signing day, which is this big day where everyone who has D1 offers chooses where they're going to go. And I didn't have any offers, and thus I didn't choose where I was going to go. That's in February. By the time April rolled around, like this is when even non-athletes have chosen where they're going to go to school that next fall. I still hadn't, because I was like torn. I had the opportunity to play D3 college ball with my brother, or maybe like walk on at Princeton. I get a call from the Vanderbilt head coach, and he's like, Andrew, we want to offer you a scholarship. I was like, Coach, signing day is come and gone. What happened? And anyway, ultimately, Vanderbilt's highest rated recruit at the time, Rajon Bennett, he's this running back out of Georgia. His mom had a boyfriend who broke in their house in the middle of the night and had a gun, was shooting around. Rajon jumps in front of his little brother who had a disability, took a bullet for him, literally. And he's like, that happened, and we want to give you a scholarship. I was like, oh my gosh, this is, wow, what do I do with this? It's simultaneously my dream come true, but under such tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
I've tried to reconcile that in the analogies to like Jesus in my life, where it's like, okay, wow, we have all this wonderful freedom and opportunity in life, but you know, Jesus took it all for it. Anyway,
yeah,
I haven't quite made sense of that. So I showed up on campus, and you know, ultimately my class won the most. We were the winningest Vanderbilt class of all time, and
wow.
I still I try to mention Rajon's name as often as possible, just because he has this essay called Strength that you could look up online still. It's amazing. But he was just of top-notch character, and I honestly just feel in a lot of ways like not worthy to step into his shoes, but I hope I did somewhat justice with it, you know?
That's so good. I think about this, like when there's a couple ways to handle something like that. Somebody does something sacrificial and something maybe you're undeserving of, but you're given an opportunity, even though you may not deserve it. And I think some people maybe go through life and feel like, well, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve this privilege or this opportunity, and kind of be like that and kind of have this level of like guilt. I actually see a lot of people. I see this whole culture today of people walking around with guilt because I was rich or it's color of my skin or something like that. But the other one is going around with this idea of, I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed. And so, it's all about, it's perspective, right? It's mindset. And that's, it's a really powerful mindset to kind of even correlate it with that. Somebody sacrificed for me. I'm going to live in the state of gratitude and make the best of that. Because I think that's the best way to honor somebody.
Yeah.
It's not walk around guilty. Say, you know what? I'm going to make the best. And I look at what you did, being captain, from what I know of you, and I'm sure that one of the reasons you got this, the most greatest encourager, the most inspirational person in that locker room. And that's honoring that person, right? It's like, that's, anyways, I love that.
We're reading through Mere Christianity right now, and C.S. Lewis talks about raw materials, and like not everybody has the same raw materials, but I think it's a responsibility to try to use whatever raw materials you've been given as well as possible, as effective or generously as possible. But it's like, okay, game on. What are my raw materials and what can I do with it? Shoot, it's kind of a fun game.
Yeah.
It's like, let's navigate this thing.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
How has having kids for you guys changed your relationship and view of God?
Oh, man. I love thinking about the analogies of marriage and how that informs my perspective of God, and parenting and how that informs my perspective. There's so many analogies and things that I've learned. One of which I think about our 2-year-old son. We had a birthday party for him just a couple months ago. And I'll never forget, he woke up after his nap, came downstairs, and we had, while he was asleep for the last 2 hours, decorated the whole house with like dinosaurs and balloons. We had food out. We had all his favorite things, toys and bikes and all the things. And he was walking down the stairs and just had this awestruck look on his face. And I was like, Jet, this is all for you. This is all for you, man. We did this. And I don't think he fully understood, but it's like, I do feel that way now, where God is just like, he's here for us and has provided all of these things. And, he clothes the lilies in the field and the birds of the air.
Yeah.
And it's like, he'll do the same to me. And he's done this for us. And I think there is, to me, I started crying when I saw the look on his face. I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a strong picture. And I'm so glad that I get to experience this despite all the frustrations. It's like you put the kid down and sometimes it's an exhausting day. But you wake up the next day and there's like so much purpose in it. And you're like, okay, I thought taking an ice bath was hard. And I love seeing these people online saying like, oh, wake up and dip in cold water for 4 minutes. How about you parent for 24 hours and feel how exhausting that is or strenuous that is? But just that thought of God providing everything here for us. And then also the discipline side of things, where it's so hard to get that right as a parent, where my intention here is to love you, and love looks different depending on the situation. Sometimes it looks like standing at an altar, looking at the love of your life, just with, big hearts in your eyes, like so much love you could cry. Sometimes it looks like me sitting my son down on a couch and reprimanding him or like correcting him. But when you take the long view of that too, like, it's like, okay, I don't think God is like moving chess pieces around or like making this happen and not making this happen for me. But when I think of discipline and when I've erred away from of like God's intention and plans versus when I feel like I'm really in tune with the word and like with the community he's put me in touch with there, the discipline aspect I feel like is enhanced as well, just from what I've learned as a parent. Yeah.
Do you think God's ever set up anything for you that you feel like, has he ever set up anything for you? Feel like the person you married, like Sean, or done anything like that?
Do you believe in the one? I mean,
Wow. I believe in a really sort of beautiful combination, or I believe in a combination of free will and predestination. And I think this could be getting a big, even theological discussion. You've got a lot of Reformed Calvinists who are going to be very staunch on, hey, everything is, this idea of predestined, everything is already written versus, again, you get more methods, it's free will. But I think for me, the way that I look at it is I think that God orchestrates for certain things to happen, but I feel like he's very hands off. I believe that Christ coming and orchestrating that, or God coming himself and in the death and resurrection, I believe that was orchestrated. I believe the end is already written in terms of there will be a new heaven and a new earth. And, and we'll be here on this new heaven reunited with our bodies, and we will be, back creating paradise as Adam was, the Garden of Eden. And so, but I also do believe that, the Bible talks about, like, here's what I would say. If he doesn't orchestrate anything, then why would I pray? That's the way that I think about it. And so when I think about prayer, I think that there's a combination of God and then, angels that are working on our behalf. I think about Daniel, and he's praying at a point, he's praying at one point, and actually there's this angel that's coming to help. He's praying to God, and then God sends an angel, and the angel's like, the Prince of Persia, this specific demon, like, kept me from getting here, but I'm here now. It took me 3, and so it's really interesting when you look at the Bible. So my answer is, do I believe that God orchestrates every last piece to where we're almost robots or everything is predestined? I don't believe it like that. But do I believe that he orchestrates certain thing? I do. And then do I believe that there is do I believe in soulmates? I think I do.
oh my,
I'm not 100% certain. Now listen, I believe that a lot of people can be compatible. So I do believe that if somebody felt like, hey, you know what? I married the wrong person. I believe that if you're in that situation, you're called to love and serve that person and be faithful until the day you die. So I do believe in compatibility, in being compatible to be married with multiple people. But do I also believe that, let me give you an example of this. I prayed for, I had a buddy, Pete Camille, you've met him. And before I got married, I was probably 27. And I realized God put on my heart, I'm like, man, I really feel like I'm ready to get married. So Pete and I, we did a prayer call every night on Sunday nights before the week. We'd pray for each other. And Pete would pray for my wife. And I would think about, okay, what do I want in a wife? And I want her to be, I want her to, I want us to share the same values. I want her to be a Christian. I want her to have a strong faith. I want, like, all of these things. And, and then 2 years later, I met Chelsea. We got married. And so I'm not saying for sure that maybe God was like, hey, I've set this up from the very beginning where you'll marry this person. But I'm also saying that maybe he did. I don't know. I think there's some of those answers where I don't know.
it's interesting. I think prayer is like, God doesn't need us to pray, I don't think. So I think prayer is more for us and our relationship with God than anything else. Like your prayer for Chelsea, it's almost like if I say yellow VW buggy, you're like, right now, you're going to go out the next couple months, and because I've mentioned that, you're going to look and be aware of more yellow VW buggies now, just because it's like top of mind. I think prayer kind of has that effect. Here's another parenting analogy that I think plays into this. It's really hard to fight this temptation of like, okay, Jed is clearly a really good athlete. My 2-year-old son is like physically.
He is. Yes, he is he's an athlete,
so,
for sure.
But I'm not setting that as his final destination. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this really pleasant journey of watching these kids grow up and exploring their passions. It's like a treasure hunt that you get to lead them through for the first couple of years of their life, and then maybe watch them navigate it themselves, where it's like, hey, there's a lot of good ways to live life.
Yeah.
I think God kind of, it's like kind of the same way. So predestination versus free will. It's like, I think God it has these hard boundaries set where it's like, stay away from this, stay away from that. But like, there's a lot of fun, exciting things I've placed you here. I've placed on this earth. I think that goes the same way for finding the one, or, you know, your spouse, where I think I probably could have married 10,000 different people. And Sean, this was just like one version of how the story could have ended. I'm super, super thankful. And I can't imagine it any other way.
You guys are super busy. I mean, you guys are some of the busiest people I know, but here's the thing. Anytime I talk to you, it's like a good busy. It's like you're doing great things, fun things for the family. I mean, things that are meaningful. It's not like there's a proverb, and it's like, teach me to number my days that I may gain a heart of wisdom, right? Teach me to count my days, like teach me to value time in that sort of way. You guys, what is your process of prioritization for you and Sean in order to create these meaningful moments? And talk to me about meaningful moments, because I get when I say this, I'm serious. When I think about somebody who's really intentional about creating meaningful moments, I think you guys are really conscious of that.
Well, I appreciate that. We did just form a foundation I'm excited to build called Moment Makers, where it's like delivering these. You don't remember years of your life. Like if I ask you what was the best part about last year, you're going to tell me about like a day or one like 10-minute period in your life. You mentioned your birthday party, your 40th birthday party the other day. And it's like, I'll never forget being in that restaurant. Us all like,
it's so fun. You almost got us kicked out. But that was a blast.
But it's like, how can you provide those moments for other people and then have this like follow on sequence that actually like, you know, leads to more meaning and purpose in life. But this goes back to the scheduling thing with friends that I learned from you. And people say they're busy all the time. Like that's just, I think, a side effect of Western culture. Sean and I have pleasantly fallen into or worked towards, you could say we're busy. I like to say that we're committed to the things that we love the
matter
most.
most.
It's like we have a full schedule. If you look at my schedule, it's like, boom, boom. I'm going to get out of here and go meet Joey and Heath. They're great. I'm excited about that, you know? But busyness has this undertone of like, oh shoot, like franticness or lack of control or lack of, excitement about things. So how do we prioritize? I'm super thankful for my wife in that realm. I think I would probably skew towards just over-indexing work and my personal hobbies. She's always tugging me back. You brought up this term, beneficial adversary, which is brought up, I guess the Hebrew word for Eve
that's right.
in Hebrew, as in Adam and Eve, means beneficial adversary. And I love that image. To me, it like unlocks this freedom as a spouse to like challenge my wife, but in a healthy way. You know, it doesn't always feel healthy, but it's like, how can I be a beneficial adversary to my wife? And then also acknowledge that she has a different perspective. And I feel like there's so much friction in this relationship, but it's all for good. It's like, okay, she's coming at it, prioritizing our kids and our marriage, which might not come naturally to me all the time. So I'm so thankful that she's injecting that, where I inject, hey, let's knock X, Y, and Z out the schedule. Let's make sure that we're going, a little more logistics oriented. So I'd say, to answer your question, wife, and then feeling free to ask for help. I think we've grown into that habit, and actually like writing things down or putting things on the schedule. Like you have to, or else you're gonna miss it or skip over it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, what you're really good at this too. I on a podcast recently, I did a news episode and talked about foobing, which is when you're on your phone and like, in the middle of a conversation, phone snubbing people. And you guys literally have a box in your kitchen where you guys just regularly just put your phones. You're always present time conscious. Like you're with, like I know when I'm with Andrew, I am with Andrew. Like you're alert, you're receptive, you're there, you're present. Is there some, is that just naturally the way you are, or have you actually really been conscious about, no, I'm going to get rid of my phone. I'm going to be present and conscious with people.
I think part of it, I mean, generationally, I grew up when we still had like the flip phones. My first phone was like in freshman year of high school. I had the Samsung. It was not like always a part of my life, which probably contributes to it. And then my dad had a saying that, love is not always efficient, but it's always effective. He used to hammer that home to us. And that's kind of just how we grew up, where he always had this eagerness to engage with people, the same type of curiosity that I've stumbled into. I just think I use my phone as a tool to get me in front of people that I'm excited about, or like this is not the end goal. I don't want to spend my free time on my phone. And so I have tried to be unapologetically unavailable to people who aren't right in front of me, or like who aren't my priority, right? So that I can be unapologetically available to the people, like to my wife, to my kids. That's what matters most.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Could we have made a couple more bucks if I answered emails quicker? Maybe. Could I have a couple more followers on social media if I was on it more? Maybe. But it's like, what are we doing here?
When I think about you, one of the things is when you think about priorities, it's people, right? It's not phones. It's not, emails. It's not those things. It's a big priority for you is people, and investing in people and loving people and connecting with people. What is your biggest piece of advice for people if you're in? Well, I have two questions left. One question is, you and Sean, even from when I first met you, and I feel the same way for Chelsea and I too, but we've all continued to grow together. Like when I'm like, hey, where's Andrew's wisdom from when I first met him? And it's wow, you've continued to grow in wisdom and your business, all these things you've continued to grow. What are some of the most important growth habits that you have that you have on a regular basis?
Well, I appreciate that. Honestly, you've played such a big part of that. And you asked me all these challenging questions. I'll never forget, like the first time you asked me to like write down all my assets, and like you were like, so how much money are you gonna make this year? I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, I get up in your business. You said earlier, I asked these questions because out of humility, I think it's probably chutzpah more so, but it's
I think. Sorry, what was the question? I lost it.
So one of the things that, again, like you and Sean are growing. You're growing as people, parents, spouses. What are some of those habits that you have that have allowed you to continue to grow?
Okay, so we do this big goal setting thing at the beginning of every year, where the first year we did it, it was so hard and so vague. We didn't know what we were talking about, but like we went through every aspect of our life. We have 12 different categories, and we said, okay, what do we want life to look like a year from now? We added this vision aspect of it. So we'll actually write the goals down, but then we'll write like a journal entry as if we were living a year in the future. Does that make sense? So it's like, life is so good. We have our 3 kids and we play each morning before we go to school. It's like, I don't know, it adds this more real element to it where it doesn't become this like far off distant thing. It's more of this is super attainable. We can do this. And the fun thing about this is I feel like this applies to a lot of different aspects in life, but like the startup cost is much higher than the ongoing maintenance cost that you pay. Like if you think about starting a business, there's going to be so much that you have to learn and invest into something as compared to making tweaks to the advertising budget or changing the website here and there. Changing something is so much easier than starting something. And like marriages too. If you're going through a hard time in your marriage, if I should just work on the maintenance of this, because if I don't and I get remarried, that startup cost is high there. So the goals are the same thing for us. That first year was starting it was super hard, but then now we use last year's goals and we'll just like edit it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which makes it super easy to like go through it. And it's also such a fun process. We take a full day to do that. We have monthly checkups, Sean and I do, where we try not to gripe at each other all the time. So we'll kind of save them for like a predetermined time during the month where a pattern's built up, and it's like, hey, Sean, I realized you're not taking a lot of showers, and you're like, it's like you've allowed time to expose this negative habit, or that you want to like gently talk about something with. That's been really good for us. And then I think you got to have, I feel so spoiled. I feel like in every aspect of my life, I have a group of people around me that like is better at me than things. So Saturday mornings, I wake up at 6 a.m. I'm training with like CrossFit games athletes, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers. They put me to shame physically. And I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. So I'm always striving. In business, I have mentors like you where it's like, man, you're leaps and bounds ahead of me. I'm always learning something from you. And it's like I've definitely benefited and like feel so spoiled to have that. But that also then has this side effect of like accountability. So it's like, okay, I don't want the text messages at 6:15 on Saturday morning saying, Andrew, where are you? You know, you dropped the ball. It's like, no, you want to show up for the people that are around you. So having a community definitely makes a difference. And then trying to be super intentional with what your habits are and make it as easy as possible to like get there. So, you know, whether it's a macro diet or like working out to whatever extent, like Peloton, cycling, having that as a exercise equipment that people can have in their house. Like people are getting more exercise now because now they don't have to drive 15 minutes to the gym. They can just go to their living room. But that goes for like diets too. So it's like, oh, you have a macro plan that you need you have to get 200 carbs in. It's like, I just think it's not shortcuts, but you can be strategic with like teeing things up, whether it's like pre-making meals or whatever. And the commitment also plays a role in that of just like planning. So, you know, we have a men's group meeting in October. That's on the calendar. That's locked in. That's done. I know I'm going to get a little bit of personal growth on that. And so I think those are a couple things that come to mind.
Those are good things. I kind of want to go through those. So you get around people that level you up. That's a big thing, you know, and I think that's just so important. I think mentorship, I think iron sharpens iron. Those things are big. I love that. You guys goal set together, you and Sean. That's so great. You didn't say this one, but you're an avid reader. You're always reading and learning, whether it's listening to an audiobook or just reading yourself, for at least a book a month. I see that too. You know, you're part of a growth group, so you're intentional with your community. But anyways, I love that. All those things add up. Last question. What's the best piece of advice you have for anybody who is saying to themselves, I want to grow, whether it be spiritually in their relationships? So what's your advice for anybody in terms of your best advice for growth?
Best advice I have for growth. We have so many tools that you can look up a group of people who are also interested in the thing that you're interested in. Go show up to the rock climbing gym and like be a part of that little hour-long exercise. Go show up to the cycling group that's at your, you know, local neighborhood. Find the thing that you're interested in and then find the group of people who are also doing it. And like, oh my gosh, when I think it's a directly correlated to the connections that you have. I think personal growth is directly correlated to the connections you have in the sense that like, oh my gosh, you never know who you're going to meet on the cycling group who might then invite you to the men's group. But it's like getting engaged with the thing, like dialing that knob up of like, okay, I really like to bike by myself. Oh, well, the next step would be going to do it with other people. I think like, get connected, get to know people and like do more of it. And then if you don't like it, do less of it, cut it out, do the next thing that you're interested in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
good.
if there's resistance and it's like, oh, this is just hard, but I still like it, double down on it. Like just say, okay, all right, challenge accepted. I have to conquer this next move or I got to climb that next hill. That's great. That's really exciting. That's like where you want to be in life. It's always on like, you know, if you think about the yin and yang, not to get super frou-frou, but it's like, you want to be on the edge of chaos. Yeah. Jordan Peterson talks about this, like always pushing towards that. And people, having a group of people around you to help you do that is essential.
That's so good. It's so good. Hey, I want to encourage everybody. You guys can find Andrew at Family Made. Their YouTube station is awesome. So if you go to YouTube and you just search Andrew East or Family Made, they have such a great channel where they're putting out family-friendly content on a regular basis. Also, you can follow Andrew on all his social channels if you just follow at Andrew East. And Andrew, appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
All right. Wow. Let's go. All right. Everybody. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the Growth Lab. Again, thanks so much to Andrew East for sharing his wisdom today. Remember, each and every week we go through how to grow yourself, your health, your wealth, your relationships, your spirituality, your career. and so much more. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.